Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about estate plans in general and specifically healthcare directives and long-term care. Both of those are things that should be part of your estate plan and things that you should be thinking about that a lot of people don't, but we're going to go over some of those points today and let you know kind of why you should be thinking about that, why you should be planning, and how to implement that. We're going to be I appreciate y'all taking the time out of your day to join us live. I know that everyone's got a lot going on, but it means a lot to us that you took this time, and we'll try and keep it brief and informative and comical if we can. So let's go ahead and get started. I've got a pretty short PowerPoint that I'm going to share with you and kind of help us walk through this process. And also, we're recording this, and so this will be available if there's a point that kind of piqued your interest, but you can't remember where it's at, I'll be putting this up on our website or Facebook page after we get done. So you'll be able to go back through it if you want to take another look at it. So you should be looking at our PowerPoint now. This is, like I said, we're going to talk about healthcare directives and updating your estate plan, and kind of like to start with a quote. And this is a quote that I borrowed from Oscar Wilde. It says, "Expect the unexpected." And that's kind of where we get to with our estate plans is, we all know that we're going to die at some point. So we all know that we should have a last will and testament. But we don't think about the intermediary and what was to happen if you were to be incapacitated or get sick. And that's kind of where we're at right now is with this COVID-19. It's a fairly deadly virus if you get it, but the horror stories that we've been hearing from our nurse friends and those on the front lines are those people that get completely incapacitated and get put on a ventilator, and some of them are young people and they've probably never done this type of estate planning. And so what happens is sometimes the doctors will let their parents act for them and sometimes they won't. And so that's really the reason that we're having this webinar, is that you need to expect the unexpected and to plan for it now rather than try and react to it later. It just makes it easier on you, it gives you the peace of mind, and it makes it easier on your family. And most importantly, it gives you the choice of who you want to make those decisions for you before you're in the mix and before you can't make those decisions for yourself. And I'm joined today by my friend and colleague, Chris Roberts, who's going to talk to you about the long-term care planning part of this presentation a little bit later on. And he's a financial planning professional with Paradigm Wealth Management here in Fort Worth, and a friend of mine, and very knowledgeable about the subject. So as most people know, the estate planning starts with the last will and testament. Like I said, everybody knows that they're going to die, and they know that they need a last will and testament, although a lot of people don't go through the trouble of actually executing one. And that's kind of how we got to this practice at my law firm, is that we've handled a bunch of probates, and you'd be surprised at how many people, even elderly people, get to that point in their life and don't have a last will and testament. They just let their family figure it out and let the probate court figure it out, and it never ends well. It's always, it's good for the lawyers, not good for the family. And so we kind of launched this elder law practice, estate planning, to help families prepare for that inevitability. But like I said, what we usually see is that even where people do execute a will, they don't get around to executing healthcare directives because they don't plan for the unexpected. And as COVID is showing us, there's lots of things in life that are unexpected. I think the statistics are, by the time you're 75, over 50% of people will have some sort of incapacity for 30 days or longer. And so the stuff that we're talking about today is really important for your planning and for your family, and to do it now when you've got capacity and time to think about it. And so that brings us to our first point on probably the most important thing besides the last will and testament or long-term care in your estate plan is a medical power of attorney. And so this is where you get to designate who you would want to act on your behalf with healthcare decisions if you were to become incapacitated. And so if you, let's say for instance that you or someone you know did contract COVID-19 and was put on a ventilator. Well, if you're on a ventilator, by definition, you can't speak for yourself. And so if you have a medical power of attorney, the doctors by law have to speak with that person that you chose to make these healthcare decisions. And the problem with not having one is that usually you're going to end up in a guardianship proceeding in a court. And there are emergency guardianship proceedings, but they take longer than you would like, especially in life or death situations like COVID-19 and being on a ventilator, and they cost a bunch of money. And so that's why we execute these on the front end. It's part of an estate plan. It's the right thing to do. And most importantly, you get your choice of who you would want to take care of you if something happened and you couldn't speak for yourself. The next one is what we call a physician's directive. And some states, they call it a living will or an advanced directive. And this is where you get to put down on paper what you want to happen if you have a terminal or irreversible condition. And it's basically, do you want to be on life support or not? And some people do. Some people just want to be kept alive no matter what for as long as possible. But I'd say the majority of people, and interestingly enough, we've been doing a lot of these estate plans for nurses and healthcare professionals, and 100% of them say that they do not want to be kept on life support. But regardless of that, it's your choice, and you get to put that down now. And so that decision doesn't have to fall to a family member. All they have to do is show this to the doctors, and then your wishes will be followed. And also something that we write in our physician's directive, and I think gives our clients a lot of comfort, is that the determination of whether or not you're terminally ill will be made by your physician. And so if you're in an ER setting where you're on life support, the doctor they will call in your physician to make that determination of whether or not it's irreversible or terminal. So that's another safeguard and another way that you get your choice in what's going to happen to you. And you get to make that before it's too late and you can't speak for yourself. This next one kind of slips by a lot of people. And I think because we think that guardians are only for minors, but really it's not for minors. I mean, anyone that's had a parent or a grandparent that ends up in nursing home care knows that you're going to end up going through a guardianship proceeding. And so, a lot of people do their last will and testament, but then don't think about who's going to make decisions like does grandma go in the home, or do we want to hire a nurse to come out and help her? And you need a guardianship order to do that. But the way to get around the court is to just do it on the front end and designate a guardian. And I mean, it's a very simple form, but it's very powerful to have, and a pain when you don't. And again, it's your choice. You get to choose who you want to take care of you and make those decisions in the event that you need a guardian without going through the court proceedings. This next one is one that we've probably all heard about because it's a federal law and the HIPAA protections of your medical records. And this can be very important, again, if you're incapacitated, because oftentimes the treating physician has to coordinate with your physician or with a physician at another facility. And so they need to share those records. And if you're already incapacitated, you're not around to make those decisions. And so, again, you get to choose someone, whether it's a spouse, a parent, an adult child, whoever you feel comfortable, not only authorizing access to your records, but taking care of bills and payments with the hospital, or just handling your medical records and affairs while you're incapacitated. And again, it all just comes down to choice. Who do you want to make those decisions? Maybe the same on all of these forms, but you may have a specific child or parent that you think would do better in one situation over the other. So again, it's you get to choose now and then never have to worry about it again, because if something happens to you, you know you've got the right people in place to take care of it. Which is a good segue into the next point, because this one is all about your finances. And I mean, if you've ever dealt with a bank and you're trying to deal on someone else's behalf, the bank flat out will not grant you access to an account and will not even talk to you unless they can see a durable power of attorney. And again, you get to choose who you want to handle your finances, and that could be the same person that you want to handle your care, or it could be someone totally different. But the point is, you have to have this in place before you need it. Now, all of this stuff that we're talking about today, we hope that you will never need it. I hope that you live healthy until the day that you die, and then you've got a last will and testament in place. But we all need to think about it, and we need to plan for the unexpected. And this is a big one, because if you get incapacitated and you don't have a spouse on your mortgage, then who's going to deal with the bank and paying your mortgage, or trying to get it deferred, or any of that other stuff? So you need this durable power of attorney in place so that your finances don't get behind during that time that you're incapacitated. So this next one is also a huge part of an estate plan that most people don't think about. I mean, personally, I had a grandmother that needed long-term care, and you know, she had some money in the bank, not a ton of money, but enough that she didn't qualify for Medicaid, and we had to watch while the state just siphoned off the funds in her account until we got her down to $2,000, which was the asset limit. And then she qualified for Medicaid. So one of the ways that we protect against that is by counseling our clients to talk to someone like Chris about long-term care planning and long-term insurance. And so I'm gonna let Chris take over now and tell you a little bit more about that, why it's important, and how you can get it.
All right, thanks, Eric. So we've got a handout that we're going to send out after the webinar here that has all these resources that I'm going to give you, and all these bullet points that we're going over. But we thought this was just a good introductory, I guess, study on what you should be thinking about right now when thinking about long-term care. And there's never a, you know, too early of time to start thinking about it. But this was put together. We paired up with Dr. Sandra Timmerman, who's a gerontologist that she specializes in aging and retirement. So number one, assess your needs now and in the future. That's, you know, where do you want to be? Do you want to be in a big house, big yard still, you know, mowing your own yard? Do you need, you know, 4 bedrooms versus, you know, 2 bedrooms? It's really just beginning the thought process of, you know, what you want your living situation to look like in retirement and long-term care. 2, just study up on long-term care. So we've all heard I mean, I compare it to investing too, because I do that too, but it's, you know, you've heard it from your neighbor, your buddy, your aunt or uncle. You've even seen parents, grandparents that have gone through long-term care, and you have an idea of things. But a lot of times the ideas that somebody gives us aren't, you know, exactly full and true. So it's a good idea to just kind of go through, look at everything on your own. And a good resource that is longtermcare.gov. That's a perfect place to start. It's a government website that'll tell you about different costs and things like that. It's pretty, a couple of these resources is a lot of stuff, but it gives you more information than you'd ever think of. And you will say to yourself, dang, I didn't think of that. So evaluate your home to see if it's age friendly. Eric knows that during this quarantine time, I broke my foot. So I have found out that my home is very not age friendly. Trying to take a bath with a broken foot or take a shower, there's not those poles that you hold on to that you have in some of those hotel rooms that you know, go in that have the ADA compliant stuff. It's not fun. My office is upstairs in my home. Again, no fun trying to get to an upstairs office on a broken foot. So that's just things that you want to think about. And a lot of us probably have thought of that. So Consider the attributes your community has as a place to grow old. This is another thing that I think quarantine has even helped out with. It's getting stuff delivered. I live in an area that I don't think we have any delivery. We have one pizza place, I think, that'll deliver here, versus working in downtown Fort Worth, where I've got 15 different apps I can use to get food or groceries or anything delivered. So is it easy to get to the grocery store? Is it easy to get care to your house? I have a client in Fort Worth that went into a long-term care facility but had to get her care in Dallas, and the Uber bills that she was paying were just ridiculous. So that's something to think about, is how is the transportation in your area and how you're going to get around, and family to help too. Next is research cost and quality of long-term care. So that is something where it's across the board different in every different state, the different types of long-term care. It depends on if, people are coming to your house, if you're in an adult daycare, all different types of things. And what are the extras too, is if it's going to cost $3,500 a month, does that include, X, Y, and Z? So that's something too that you want to make sure when you're researching these types of things. On the next set of bullet points, number 6 would be get to know other resources available in your community. So there's a website for that that's on the handout. It's been updated. It was eldercare.gov. Now I think it's eldercare.acl.gov. But that gives you the various different organizations that are around to help people when they're aging, and resources, things that you don't know are around. Number 7, don't put off a family conversation. This should probably be step number 1, is talking with your family members about this. It's so many times where all of a sudden, people will be put in this situation, they haven't planned for it. So again, it should be moved up to number 1, where you are talking to family members and figuring out, how your care will be provided if it's needed. So this is also where Eric would help out on the medical directives and things like that. You want to bring your family members in on that type of conversation, because it's very important. Number 8, be realistic about the ability of your family to provide care. So going back to my retirement side of things and investment side of things, I've had so many people that have had to either retire early, quit a career in their prime. Just nightmare stories, because a family member, is ill, or they have to take care of them, or, there's so many different reasons. And all of us will help other family members. So it's something where we'll drop everything, and I would drop everything to go help my mom if, she needed help on things. But by planning ahead for these type of things, we don't have to put our families in those types of situations. So is, your sister that lives 5 hours away really going to be able to help with your mom that lives, right down the street from you, and things like that. So number 9, another Eric topic, is plan for possible cognitive incapacity. This is something where you need to plan in advance for this. You don't want to be in a situation where you haven't planned if you have cognitive incapacity. And then 10, just review your retirement plan to make sure the cost of care is covered. So, there's places where an assisted living facility may cost $45,000, or a nursing home is $85,000. The costs run the gamut, whether it's, having somebody come to your house. One of my clients has to have help with her checkbook and balancing all that stuff once a week. And so that's like $50, things like that. There's all different types of cost involved. And now's the time to plan where, if you have a big pension, let's say, and you have $90,000 a year coming in, or you have $40,000 a year coming in, that's what I call mailbox money. You may not need as big of a long-term care policy as somebody that, doesn't have a pension and has worked on Social Security for their whole lives and doesn't have that mailbox money coming in. And there is so many different types of long-term care that is out there. There is where you pay it all up front. There's where you pay it over your life. There's where you pay it for 10 years. There's long-term care that you can roll IRAs into to fund. If you have cash in a cash account, there's accounts for that. So this goes back again to the, friend that has it or the aunt that has it. Because again, I run across this all the time where when my clients and I start this conversation of, long-term care, I've heard it's expensive. I've heard you can't get it. I've heard this. It can be expensive. It cannot be expensive. So it just helps to explore it on your own and figure out what's best and what plan works for you. You never know what's out there. So that's all I have, Eric.
Well, thanks, Chris. And that last point that Chris made was kind of the reason he and I had visited about my retirement and about some of his clients. And that's why I wanted him to join today, was just to let our listeners know that long-term care insurance is available, and there's a bunch of different ways that you can finance it, usually with some assets that you've already got. It's just that you haven't had that discussion with the right person. And I really enjoyed my visit with Chris on ways that we could offer it to our clients that I didn't even know existed. And so I'd say that just reach out and have that conversation. Like Chris said, do the research on your own, get a feeling for it, and then reach out to a professional that you trust that can walk you through a bunch of different scenarios and see which one works for you. Because with the cost of long-term care where it is right now and only getting higher as we go, it's a very, very important part of your estate plan, along with the last will and testament and the healthcare directives we talked about. It all wraps in together. And that brings me to my next slide, which is to revisit your estate plan periodically. I mean, once you get it in place, you've done the lion's share of the work, but it makes sense just to sit down with your professionals once every 5 years or so and just make sure that it still works. Because, if it's outdated or your family dynamic has changed and it may not work for you anymore, then you run the risk of, not getting the benefit of your bargain. And so just set a note, set a reminder every 3 to 5 years just to take a look at it, make sure that it still works. And lastly, the reason that we all do it, it's all about the family. It's good for you to have your peace of mind, but mostly you're doing this for your family. And that's the thing that I stress to everyone, is that you love your family. You want everything to be right for them. You work your whole life to make sure that it is. This is just a step to make sure that everything you want to happen is going to happen. And as you can see, this is my 15-year-old over here is now driving. And so all of this becomes relevant now that he is my chauffeur. My last will and testament immediately became relevant, and all of my healthcare directives, and maybe even long-term care insurance. He's a very good driver, but at the same time, it's quite terrifying. And then so Chris said we're going to send out a handout that he had on long-term care, and I'm going to send out this link that I have at the bottom just to show you kind of how easy it is to get started on these healthcare directives. If you bear with me, I'll run through it just real quick, but I'll send this out in the email. Chris, can you see my intake form now?
Yes.
Okay, so this is our Martin Lawyers estate planning questionnaire for those of you that are interested in getting your last will and testament or your healthcare directives done. Just have an explanation page right here, instructions, and then this is really all that it takes, is just kind of your vital information, your marriage status, your children, who you want your stuff to go to, and then who you would want to take care of. First, your estate, and then all the things that we were talking about today. And then leave a deposit. And really with this information, we can get your estate planning just about complete. And then we'll have a follow-up a follow-up visit to discuss any specific requests you'd want to make, and then after that, it'd be time to execute it, and you'd be done. And I know that everyone wants to get that done, and they think that it's a really difficult step. It is a big step in your life, but I wouldn't call it a difficult step. And I think that we've really taken the pain out of the process. And so that being said, I really appreciate y'all joining us today. We'll open up the floor now. So if anyone's got any questions, just go ahead and ask away. Well, Chris, I guess that's the mark of a successful webinar when you've answered all of the questions up front.
That's right.
Like I said, we're going to send out a follow-up email. Really appreciate you joining us today. There'll be more information in the email, and then you'll have Chris and I's contact info. And just feel free, please reach out with any questions you've got. We'd be happy to answer it, and we look forward to hearing from y'all. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day.